Okay, comparison between the ThieAudio Monarch Mark II and Mark I, or the original. This is really kind of a first impressions video. First thing I'll show you is the frequency graph. You can see that they kept the elevated sub-bass over mid-bass, but they added a little bit, about 2 dB between, let's say, 70 hertz and about 220 hertz. There's a difference between the two of them, and it really plays out in my first day and a half of listening clearly with male vocals. It's making a slight difference with bass guitar, less so with kick drums and drum kits, but it's clearly impacting male vocals to the point where I was surprised, because my problem with the original Monarch wasn't, I never got to the stage where I was really being critical of vocals because I was so focused on 4-string bass guitar and the drum kits. It just didn't sound authentic. That's not high fidelity. That's not faithful reproduction. I couldn't get my mind around that. But it's a library thing. That's why library is so important. It didn't match my library. On the new version, we'll take a look at the graph at another time. You guys can see that at your leisure. Let's talk about some music. The Mick Jagger's vocals on, this is called Rolled Gold, very best of the Rolling Stones. I have no idea when this was released. Maybe it'll say it in the header. No, it doesn't. This is old. My mother had this. Track number 20 is Under My Thumb. Under my thumb is a Siamese cat of a girl. It's down to me. Bow, 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 down, down. That fuzz bass that's going on. The Mick Jagger's vocals, comparing the two of these sets and forgetting all other sets that I possess, the vocals on the Mark II sound nice. Mick Jagger sounds really good on the Mark II, and he sounds not the same level of, I'm not as impressed, really, at all. There's a marked difference there, and when I do evaluation talking about bass guitar, there's improvement. When I talk about drums, there's some improvement, but with vocals, it's really something that kind of jumps out. If you're not a Rolling Stones fan, you're not really into, I got so much Stones. Let's get through this. I got a lot of, I'm trying to get to Nirvana. I can see it down here. There we go. This is the Nevermind album. There's a track, I think it's the second track. Yes, it is. In Bloom. To help you guys out, I'll give you a specific timestamp. Minute 40 to a minute 52. Like Mick Jagger in Under My Thumb, Kurt Cobain's vocals sound just noticeably improved. It's not a mid-lift kind of husky thing. It's just, it sounds real. Whereas on the original Monarch, it sounds lean. And lean doesn't sound natural to me. I just want it to sound high fidelity. And the Monarch Mark II is doing that with Kurt Cobain's vocals in Bloom, really in every vocal comparison. But on these two, it just really jumped out at me. I thought, damn, that sounds dope. Kurt Cobain's vocals sound awesome in Bloom. Mick Jagger sounds awesome in Under My Thumb. Wild Horses, everything that I listened to sounded fantastic. The impact on vocals is great on bass guitar. Let's go ahead and I listen to Metallica and everything. I'll do that when I do a full review. This is where the original Monarch died for me. On this album, when I was listening to When the Levee Breaks, it jumped out at me that it was lacking authority in the kick drum. This is an iconic intro to a song. Dun, tsh, dun, 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 tsh. And you think, I don't give a fuck about kick drums. It's an instrument. It was produced and mastered in a particular way. These headphones and these earphones are supposed to do it the way that it was originally done, unless you're intentionally seeking out a bassy set and you want more bass than was mastered in, or you're intentionally seeking out a more bright set because you've got hearing loss or because that's your taste. Otherwise, the goal is to play back the library in the way that it was produced, and it's played back on floor speakers or on high quality gear. When something is lacking, you notice it, and lacking anything is not a good idea if we're going for faithful reproduction. I repeat that all the time, but we've got to have a rally point where we all gather and say, we agree upon this. We've got to agree that the goal is to play back a 4-string bass guitar like a 4-string bass guitar. Not overly emphasized, not dominating over the vocals, not unnaturally loud, and also not muted so it sounds like it's not really as part of the mix as you remember it to be. In every hi-fi system that you've listened to in your life, whether it's floor speakers or good quality headgear or in-ear gear, The goal is for all of us to get this done in a way that it's supposed to be done. And when it's done any other way, we note that. The original Oracle Monarch did not do vocals as good as the Mark II does, but I never got to that point because I didn't think that it did drums and bass guitar. So let's get to just a little bit more, and then I'll let you guys go, because this is first impressions. This is Big Boy Kill Jill. The intro Hatsune Miku with the vocals, I thought it was really good. It's not overly intense or bright. I don't think this is going to be a fatiguing set for people. I think the Elysian X would be maybe more fatiguing, or some other sets. I won't name names. There's other sets that I would think might get you. The triple drop on this that's followed by a 4-string bass guitar, it sounds good, but it doesn't sound emphasized. If you're worried that they put too much bass on this, don't be, because they really just added a little bit. It is going to definitely impact male vocals. Female vocals less so. It's actually hard to pick up really any difference with Stevie Nicks comparing the two of these sets. And the drop sounds okay. Doesn't rumble kind of in the way that I'd like it, and you think, well, it's got that big sub bass focus. The rumble effect that is mixed in and produced doesn't just exist in the sub bass. It's something that is a little bit bigger than that. So I don't really get rumble with either of these sets. If we go to Black Sabbath, Sweet Leaf, between 2 minute 30, 2:36, and for about 15 to 20 seconds, you've got the fast pulls and releases, difficult for dynamic drivers to do. Effectively and cleanly. This does it well. The difference between this and the Monarch original is actually pretty notable as well, because the bass pulls and releases were like they were being trimmed on the original, and people who listened to my critique of the original kind of accepted that and walked away, because if you listen to another set that's in your possession, you think, okay, and then you listen to the Monarch, you think, oh, I can kind of get what he's saying, but that's not important to me. But you can hear it. On this set, it's a little bit better, but it's still not. If somebody said, I'm a bass player and I want to monitor myself, and they want to hear, they're doing EADG, or they're doing a drop, they're doing different tuning. I don't know if something that had this mid-bass tuning would be something that I'd rec for a bassist monitoring himself. Why do I say that? Well, because that's the focus on the instrument. But that's an instrument that's a part of an ensemble, maybe a 4-person rock group or another. So you might not listen to my library, but you might listen to a bassist with your library, whether it's a stand-up 4-string, whether it's a regular 4-string, whether it's a 5-string, again, EADG, or a drop. There's different types of tuning. I wouldn't recommend the Monarch Mark II to a bassist that said they wanted to self-monitor. I would advise them to get something that is more similar to the Elysian Acoustic X, which has a steady, gradual glide until it gets down to the mids without impacting the mids, without lifting up the vocals too much, though there is lift that's audible compared to the Monarch. I would say that the Monarch replays male vocals more accurately than the $4,000 Elysian X. The overall replay of the goods in that region, the drum kits, the bass guitar, the vocals, and then the mids and everything else, I'd give to the Elysian X. But if we're just going to talk about male vocals, I would say that the middle tuning, the yellow one, which is the Monarch Mark II, would be the supreme of the three. My personal preference is to be getting a little bit of meat on the bone, which is what this does. And it gives clear, proper due to the 4-string bass guitar, and it gives the authoritative impact of intentionally produced substantial kick drum, like when the levee breaks. The Elysian X will do that. So it'll do all of the things, if not do one of them, maybe a little bit unnaturally, just a little bit too much. But I'm cool with that. The Monarch Mark II is probably going to be for people who love the original one, and they're going to have a little bit more joy when they listen to vocals. The bass guitar is going to have a little bit more. It's not going to sound like it's trimmed. This doesn't sound trimmed. It just doesn't. There's moments where there's emphasis given to the bassist, and it doesn't sound like it's really being given with even the Monarch Mark II. But the Monarch original sounded like it was trimming the bassist. Like you actually weren't catching part of the the final chord. It was a very unique experience. And then when you listen to the kick drum, it just re-emphasizes that that area is very critical for certain things depending on your library. I learned a lot via the comparison between the Clairvoyance and the Monarch because they came at the same time. They were not radically different. The quality of the technicalities was obviously with the Monarch, but the tuning between the two, let me see if I can show that to you. I think I'm just wasting time, but I'll do it anyway. There's the Clairvoyance. And let me go ahead and take out the Elysian Acoustic X. And you can see that the Clairvoyance is not muddy by anybody's estimation. It's not, the technical chops are not beastly, but its ability to replay male vocals, kick drums, bass guitar, nobody said that's, maybe they wanted more, I don't know. But this again is a kind of more of a gradual glide. It's got a slightly more forward mids. That would be the one that I picked between that, and let me go ahead and take out this. So these were the two options at the time of the original twin release. And this was really important. Let me see if I can focus on just the bass. That difference, what does that do? It's obviously it does something. What does it do? Well, when you're the first person on YouTube or on the internet that has both of these in your possession, and one of them is supposed to be the flagship, which is the Monarch, and I'm taking pictures of it and putting in the community section, I'm saying that, you know, it sounds dope and it sounds excellent, and then I listened to the B level, the Clairvoyance, and suddenly I was catching stuff I wasn't catching on the Monarch. And then I'm looking at the graphs, like, what the hell's the difference? That was the first time that it really, two sets, same time. One of them is supposed to be the better one. Why wouldn't it be? It's more expensive. It's got more drivers. It should be. But I have a specific library, and I'm listening for specific things, and it was really a different experience. And it was right here. I don't even need to show you the rest of the frequency response. It lived here. This is why I told lots of people to get the Clairvoyance and to pass on the Monarch, and then if they went on forums, they would get similar stuff, like it might not be ideal for, et cetera, et cetera. And they'd say, okay, I get the message. And they'd move and they'd get the Clairvoyance, or they'd get something completely different. And then to go back and to go to the Monarch Mark II, we're kind of splitting right between the two of them now. I think they did a good job. I think for people that thought that maybe the Clairvoyance was a little bit too much for them, I wouldn't agree, but that's their taste. Or it was giving too much energy and it was impacting the quality of the mids because there wasn't as many drivers cleaning it up. I can kind of get it. I would think that the Monarch Mark II is splitting the difference literally and giving you your cake, and you can eat it too to some extent. It definitely replays male vocals better. It plays back bass guitar in general better, but it doesn't have quite the bite and the energy of the lowest chord on the 4-string to my ear. And the kick drum on When the Levee Breaks still doesn't sound high fidelity, which is just faithful reproduction, which means that it, like as it was made originally. So we're still not there, but some people don't need to be there. They're not listening to John Bonham. So you should be fine. So I think it's a great set. I appreciate Linsol because the previous flagship was not a set that I ever wrecked to anybody ever a single time. I don't recall it, actually. And they still sent me the follow-up to it nice and early. So shout out to Linsol. Linsol is having an 11/11 event right now. You should go check that out. That's my first impressions on the Mark II. It fits better. It's a better tune set. It is definitely a better handler of vocals, male in particular. Mick Jagger and Kurt Cobain definitely approve. Chris Cornell, Robert Plant, Robert Palmer, really everybody I listen to. Who's the lead singer for Kansas? Huck. And ELO. Damn. I mean, I got to eat some lunch. Okay, I'm out. First impressions. That's it. Okay, this is a brief unboxing and first impressions of the ThieAudio Monarch Mark II, their latest release. If you want to skip past the unboxing, check the chapters underneath the video and you can go ahead and skip past this. If you take a look, you notice that the box of the new one is just a little bit not quite as wide. It's got the same height as the other one. Who cares? Well, they're not identical. They didn't just recycle the same box from the Monarch. This is actually different. Otherwise, when you take off the cover, it looks pretty much the same. It's got the ThieAudio, and then it's also a flip top. Let's flip the top. Take that out. You've got the cleaning cloth. Put that here. I like the look of this set better because I own the AAW Canary, which I like a lot. It's got dual dynamic drivers. It's a tribrid. This looks a lot like that, and people that are familiar with the AAW said, no, this is very, very close. This, on the other hand, the Mark II, is something I've never seen before. It looks like lava, wood. It's a unique look. It's pretty cool. I dig it. Let's go ahead and get this out. The case is also different. The other one was kind of like a small Pelican case. I actually like this better. Those clip ones sometimes can pinch if the cable gets caught in the edge of it. And this is good enough for me. Open it up. And we have 3 different termination plugs. I like these. These look kind of nice. It's got the 4 pins on the inside. So we're starting with a balanced cable, and you can either switch to 2.5 balanced, or 4.4 balanced, or 3.5, which my evaluations will be done 3.5 through the ADI 2 DAC, as they always are. So this comes inside. Let's go ahead and put those down. ThieAudio white tips. I never use the tips that come with earphones. And then these are foam tips of different sizes. It's got the different colors. It's like those Tripwin. I can't remember what the name of those are, those tips, but we're here for the earphones. This is the termination for it. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So it's got a part where you rotate it gently, and then you find where its groove is, and you put it in. It's a nice system. There's a lot of modular cable systems. Some of them are kind of ghetto and cheap and plastic in this area, and this is substantial. This is slightly heavy, actually, but I like it because it's strong. This is an important part. This is a fabric covered cable. Pull through this. It's not going to wind up, as you can see, quite in the way that the original Monarch does. That's a pretty dope cable that Monarch has on it. This is cool too, and again, it's got the termination on it. It's got the Y split, and then it's got a chin slider that actually works. Some chin sliders just, they really don't function. Go ahead and take this out. Then we've got the earphones. I've seen a few comments about the size of this set. It is obviously a thinner profile. I don't know if you can quite get that. Maybe you pinch and zoom your phone, but this is obviously bigger. The breather hold is in a slightly different position on this set, which is right there. But in this angle, this is a big chunky boy. And this is really not bad considering it's got the same driver configuration as this. So one of the complaints about the original was that it didn't fit, which is a lot like something like the Sony IER-Z1R. Sometimes things sound great, but you just can't keep a fit. The Tantjim 02, absolutely one of the best dynamic drivers, period, but it's really difficult to get a good fit with it. So this is large. Some people moved on from it, not because they didn't like its sound, but because it simply didn't fit their ears. There's a possibility that that one problem that you had was resolved with the change in design. So it's definitely a smaller set than the original one. It's got a slightly different shaped shell. I'm going to go ahead and give some impressions, thoughts on the sound. The cable, one concern that I've got is microphonics. I'll check on that. Let's go ahead and talk about some music. So that's an unbox.